As we deliberate the issues that are important to our citizens this evening, keep us mindful of their opinions and their thought process, and help us to make the best decisions that we can on their behalf. As we look forward to another quarter in the year, let us never forget that those public safety officials that serve us every day, those in our military, especially those serving in foreign lands who protect us as we sleep here in the safety of the United States. Their evenings are not as safe. Make us mindful of that, and that we ask for your blessing on their behalf. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're going to start this evening with a special presentation, and this is the introduction of a new employee. So, Randy.
All right.
He's right there on the back row.
Oh, I see him, but
it's the young-looking one. It's not those other two.
Chief Holloway, if you would come up with Mr. Forrest, and please, and introduce him.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm extremely pleased to introduce Mr. Kipton Forrest. This young man is one of our volunteers. He is a local resident, and we are extremely pleased to have him working for us.
All right, Kipton, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've lived here all my life. I went to school, and as a junior in high school, I went to get my EMTB, and then I went back as a senior to help with the class, and then after graduating high school, in high school, I still got a lot of other certifications, such as like CPR instructor and a bunch of FEMA certifications and stuff like that.
Excellent.
And then after that, after I graduated, I'm currently going to Thomas Nelson to get my paramedic certification.
Excellent. Hey, thank you. And I mean that. What we really love, and Chief and I and all of council share this. One, we love the volunteer fire department and the opportunity that it brings. You've taken advantage of that opportunity and then are going to serve some time with us. We hope your whole career, but we'll see how that goes. Okay? But we love that, and we encourage all young men and young women around within the city to take that same path. It's a great opportunity, and we're glad you took advantage of it. Okay? So thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Okay?
And Kipton, you do not have to stay, but you're welcome to.
It's an exciting time, Kipton. It really is.
Yes.
All right, that's it for special presentations this evening. The next item on the agenda, I'm sorry, I do have one other. I see the gentleman has joined us from Daily Press. I met him the other night at the community group. That's Mr. Bell? Yeah. Mr. Bell, would you come up here and just introduce yourself to the public? They'll want to know who you are. And it's really a good thing. It's not, there's that Daily Press reporter. Come right here.
They gotta see me on the camera.
Yeah, just right here.
Okay.
And council hadn't met you either, so, you can, this is your opportunity.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm not used to having that many people standing behind me. I'm Tyler. Nice to meet you guys. I'm talking to the camera. I work for the Daily Press. I just started last Monday. If you need to get a hold of me for anything, either tweet at RealTylerBell or email me at tbell@dailypress.com. Look forward to articles. Probably start sometime this week.
Excellent. Okay.
No?
Thank you. Okay, that closes out the special presentations and introductions. So now is the time for audience for visitors, and I'll open the audience for visitors. I don't see any, there's no public hearings this evening. So if you'd like to address council on any issue, now is your time. Mr. Bowden.
Council. I'm James Atticus Bowden, and I'm asking City Council to issue an increased cost of compliance determination letter for my property at 92 Sandy Bay Drive. If you take a look, I've given you a green folder, put together a little package there. If you open the green folder and look to the last appendix, attachment 9, I'm going to walk through that. It'll only take a couple of minutes to just read this. It's 1 page plus, and that should answer most of your questions. I'd be glad to take any questions if you haven't. So I'm going to read this. The city didn't issue a ICC, increased cost of compliance determination letter for the structure. Why does the structure need the ICC determination letter? Well, because FEMA may grant up to $30,000 to elevate a structure for an insurance company claim of an ICC. What is the intent of the FEMA grant? It is to reduce future flood damage where there is repetitive loss. What is the definition of repetitive loss in the city code? Flood-related damage on 2 separate occasions during a 10-year period for which their repairs at the time of such flood event on the average equals or exceeds 25% of the market value of the structure before the damage occurred. I've got copies of all this and the attachments in the package. You'll note that it says that during a 10-year period. There are no qualifiers there. There are no adjectives. It doesn't say the most recent 10-year period from the point when you applied. What the city code says, a 10-year period. Does the flood damage for the structure at 92 Sandy Bay Drive meet the definition of repetitive loss in the city code? Yes. Flood damage in 2003, 9, 11 exceed the definition for repetitive flood damage. And you'll also see the documentation for that in the package. So why does the city refute the letter of the city code and insist the 10-year period must be the most recent 10 years and not a rolling 10-year period as FEMA documents indicate? You'll see in there the letter from the city that I got saying that it didn't match their definition, which says the most recent 10 years. You'll also see FEMA documents from the FEMA website that indicate it is a rolling 10-year period. So, the city code cites the Code of Virginia, not FEMA regulations. Now, the city calls someone at FEMA who said the definitions are prescriptive and can only be changed by the federal agency where the regulations are amended. And then, so who was the person at FEMA that they talked to? Was it a clerk? Was it somebody who's in a question and answer service that's provided? Was it legal counsel? Was it someone higher up the food chain? Was it an assistant secretary of FEMA? Because if you ask, I know you've all worked with, you are government, you've worked with government. If you ask the left hand what the right hand is doing, you'll often get different answers. So, do the FEMA documents indicate the 10-year period can be a rolling period or go back to 1978? Yes, and they're provided for you. FEMA documents provide definitions contrary to the most recent 10 years at the time of application, which has not been documented either in the FEMA regulations or in the city code. It's not what our code says. Does the city need to provide a variance to write the ICC determination letter? No. But should the city decide to write one, the cited city code and Code of Virginia allow for variances. And in your definition of variances in the city code, there's no exceptions. It doesn't say you can write a variance except when there's a prescriptive definition from a federal agency. It doesn't say that. It says you have the authority to write variances. Should the city provide an ICC determination letter for a structure that is below the minimum flood level? Yes, that'd be a good idea. Since the city and Commonwealth Code and FEMA intend to reduce future flood damage, the city should facilitate the ICC process for 92 Sandy Bay. I have a recent FEMA flood elevation certificate. It's attached there, and it shows that I'm below 8 feet. What is the worst outcome when the city provides the ICC determination letter with or without a variance? The worst thing that happens is FEMA says no when my insurance company applies. What risk does the city take by writing an ICC determination letter on a property on a proven flood damage, with proven flood damage, on a floodplain and below the approved flood level? None. Any questions?
No, sir. I don't think we have any questions. What I will tell you is we received a packet, so obviously this issue's been coming through, and the city knew that you were probably going to come forward.
Right.
I will tell you that your points are well made and clear. And I will tell you that, as you've made it very clear, the city doesn't really, we're not the administrators of the money, okay? That is FEMA. So we have certainly had our dealings with FEMA, some good, some not so good. I won't throw them under the bus. I mean, they've been very helpful to the city. But I understand your point, and I think what we'll do is we'll take a very hard look at your request.
Okay.
And we will certainly get back to you. I think we can make sure that we didn't talk to just a GS5 or a clerk, and basically get some more before we say that we can't do something. Okay? So let's look at it. We appreciate the comments.
Or before you say you can.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Okay. And I'll close the audience for visitors and we'll move forward to the approval of the minutes.
Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of February 22nd, 2016.
Second.
Motion made and seconded that we approve the minutes of the regular session from last meeting. Questions or comments of council? Seeing none, Judy, please.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Councilman Vernal.
Aye.
Councilman Ayer.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
And Mayor Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, in the work session?
Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes of our work session of the same day.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded that we've approved those also. Questions or comments? Seeing none, Judy, please.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Councilman Vernal.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Councilman Ayer.
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
And Mayor Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, first item under new business is an ordinance approving the second incentive payment necessary to Poquoson Family Medicine and Chiropractic Clinic and appropriating the necessary funds. Randy, is somebody going to do an introduction on this?
Yes, sir. Both the chairman of the Economic Development Authority and their de facto lead staff person, Dave Callis, are here. It might be appropriate to ask Mr. Booth to come forward and introduce the issue for you.
Great. Welcome, Don.
Pleasure to be before you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Wheeler. This matter, as many of you may recall, was put before the EDA many years ago to try to overcome the challenge of lack of primary physicians within the city borders. An opportunity came before us in 2013 that was acted upon that required an initial investment into the business of what's now known as Poquoson Family Medicine in concert with the chiropractic clinic that was there. That incentive of investment was completed in December of 2013, at which time the initial investment was made, or initial payment, excuse me, was made on completion of that investment to the structure. Following that, there was a slight delay in actually obtaining the timing of the starting of the physician at the property, which did commence in about middle of the year in 2014, at which time that documentation has now been forwarded, which the measure of that at the time was tax return documents, which my understanding is at this point have been validated through Teresa's office of the second measure, which was an increase in the revenue of that business directly tied to the medical practice that had been practiced there, or had been started there, excuse me. And so that measure has now been put to rest as to the second measure, which was the increase in the revenue of the practice. And most recently at our February EDA meeting, we reviewed that measure. We reviewed the fact that there was an offsetting time period from the completion of the improvements to the business to the actual starting of the medical practice there. And as such, come before you to basically request approval of the second installment, which I think the evidence is certainly there that the practice is up and running. And most recently, Dr. McEwen actually identified that there's now a pediatrician beginning practice there in the office there. So certainly I think great strides have been made to overcome the shortage of primary physician care. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of council? Thank you so much.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Consideration by council.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt an ordinance making additional appropriations and transfers for fiscal year 2015 and 16.
Second. Okay, motion made and seconded that we approve this ordinance change and appropriate the necessary funds to follow through on our commitment. Questions of council? Questions of council? Seeing none, Judy, please.
Okay. Councilman Ayer.
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilman Bernal. And Mayor Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, very good. Thank you all. I know y'all would like to stay for the rest of this as well, but you're also welcome to. Except for Dave, he has to stay. All right, the next item under new business is a resolution authorizing submission of a SAFER grant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll call on Lieutenant Breeden in a moment. Just provide a little bit of context. As council will recall, in the current fiscal year, we began what is hoped to, at the time, to be a 3-year implementation. In each year, we would add one additional firefighter paramedic to each of the shifts with the idea of moving closer to being in conformance with the NFPA guidelines. The first year's position was added in this budget. Lieutenant Breeden and Chief Holloway have been talking with me about the idea of moving forward the SAFER grant. The SAFER grant would essentially pay 100% of the costs and benefits of an employee for 2 years. It's not the kind of thing you want to do if you don't think you're going to keep them, but again, we're already on track to already add those 2 positions. So I'll let him come up in a moment and tell you what this is, but I would just point out to you that with your approval, we'll submit this, and if we get it, it will allow us to implement that 3-year plan essentially in 2 years, and at least for the first couple of years, at a substantial cost avoidance. So, Lieutenant Breeden?
While Lieutenant comes up, is this a state or federal grant?
This is actually a federal grant through the Assistance to Firefighter Grants Program through FEMA.
All right.
And just as he said, basically this is going to pay their salaries and benefits for 2 years. And what I'm here for this evening is part of the conditions of that is that we basically have to agree that we will not have a reduction in force for the performance period of the grant, which is 2 years. And again, you know, with your support, that would be an ongoing position. That will help us score a little bit better in the overall process of it. So that's about it. Any questions?
So just to clarify, that we won't receive a federal grant to add 2 positions and cut 2 locally funded ones. That's not the purpose of the
They don't want
grant.
that to happen.
And in the old days, I'm dating myself now, but in the old days, you were required to sign in blood that you would keep these positions beyond the grant period. That's no longer required, but it certainly is our intent, and if you can honestly express your intent to keep them beyond, as the lieutenant said, that gives you some extra points. That certainly, I would ask, and I'm certainly you would in approving this if you do, intend to complete that staff build out for fire and rescue and keep it that way.
Okay. Green.
Aren't we short firefighters already?
Yes. We have,
How many are we-
we have open positions currently.
That's what I meant.
That we're actually have an open, a position open, and it's actually being advertised as, correct. It's actually being advertised at this time.
And follow up on that, at one time, we were talking about there's national criteria about going in and out of a burning building, 2 in, 2 out, and something else. Do we meet that yet?
I'll defer to the chief or lieutenant. I think we meet it because when we need to, we bring in assets from other places to
Well,
assist
yeah, but I mean
us.
on our own, without volunteers or
Could we
community.
meet that on our own for a large fire for a protracted period of time? The answer is no.
Okay.
Correct, chief?
I think we can
And this
do
will,
it.
this will help.
Absolutely.
Every firefighter's position that we get and fill towards that is going to put us that much closer to meeting, the NFPA guidelines of either 1720 or NFPA 1710, which would be our ultimate goal. And NFPA 1710 would put 15 firefighters on scene within the first 10 minutes, actually first 8 minutes. Correct.
And depending upon our call volume, once we have one medic call, then there's no way we meet the standard
Right.
at all, so.
Right, so we're close. We also count on the volunteers that we talked about.
We do,
Um,
we do.
And
indeed.
then we also count on our agreements with surrounding localities to back us up, as well as, and it should never be forgotten, that Poquoson goes out to back up others.
We do.
So it's always important for everybody to understand that's not just a one-way street, that's actually a two-way street. Because we seem to always hear when York County's down here, but we don't hear every time that y'all are up there. Okay, so I want to make sure that that's pointed out. I think this is a no-brainer. Bottom line is, we know we're going to grow a little bit. Fire department manning has to grow with that. This is really a great opportunity to do it a little ahead of the growth. Okay, so I think it's a no-brainer, but thank y'all for bringing this to us. Any other questions of council?
Real quick, the salary and benefits, does the benefits include training as well? That's all part of that?
Once they are hired and they are our employee, then yes, they are. We cannot pay for training prior to them being an employee, but it all comes lock, stock, and barrel after that.
That's great.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Anything else? Okay, do we have a motion to move forward with this?
Mayor, I move that we adopt a resolution authorizing the submission of a safer grant for hiring 2 firefighters.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded, we move forward with this. Is anybody keeping a tally on Breeden and his, how many grants he's been winning?
He's doing right good.
He's doing pretty well. It is. Yeah, thank you.
400,000 rings before these.
No.
No, but he does enjoy our sincere thanks.
He does a great job for us. So, motion made and seconded, further questions or comments of council? Seeing none, Judy, please.
Councilman Ayo.
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Frida.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilman Bernal.
Aye.
And Mayor Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, that's the end of the new business, so we're at comments of the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 3 things, 2 of which were contained in a memo to you. So I don't forget, I'll do the third one first. Just an informational note. Teresa and I met with our financial advisors on Friday, and it is possible, I want to stress possible, not definite, that the markets may be such that we may be able to pursue a refunding of some of our existing debt. And they would like to come at your next meeting, as they always do when we think about parameters, and get your input on sort of the parameters of sort of what that deal needs to look like minimally in order to justify moving forward in your opinion. So they'll come and provide a general update and seek your guidance on the parameters of a possible refunding that they will be on the lookout for.
Please move forward with that. We're always willing to take care of our financial position and save the taxpayers some money. So but I think they'll be doing most of the consulting.
That's correct. The second item, working backwards in the memo, it's mostly informational, but I wanted to let council know that in part, based on your recent adoption of the CIP and our ongoing discussions of community and the sense of place, staff and I have been working on, and we're some months away from bringing together some streetscape improvement concepts. I would tell you the vast majority of them come from studies and other community documents that were prepared in most cases even prior to my arrival. In the short term, Tom Jones and I, a little help from Dave and some help from Alan, have been trying to see what types of streetscape improvements we can begin to make within the budget we have, which is not very much, but the point is it's a series of little things while we flesh out the larger things. So I just wanted to let you know that within the next couple of months, we're planning to build what I call as a micro park. There are probably better names for it, but I couldn't think of one, so that's the one that we went with. What it is essentially is just a bricked area bulging out from the sidewalk away from the road that would have a large park bench, would have some trees planted behind it, would have potentially a solar-powered street lamp, not a street light, but a street lamp, and potentially one of our bird feeders that we use in our marketing brochure. And the first one that we would like to install, and we're going to do this with a little bit of elbow grease and a little bit of money from various budgets already there, is in front of Company 2. Along the sidewalk area, there's a large enough space to do that. We own that piece of property, and it'll give us a nice opportunity to sort of perfect the model. And then we're already talking with the site of, hopefully, this is a private site, to do the second one, a little more central to the central intersection. So while we are looking and ultimately bringing to you larger concepts, we're going to start making smaller steps as well along the way, and I wanted to share what that is and what we're hoping to do, help to create a place of enhance the sense of place, but also to provide people a nice place to sit and congregate, and with the tree planting and all of that, we think it'll be real nice. But wanted to tell you what we were planning to do in case you had any concern about it, but also just so that you knew what it was. And with that, I'll stop and see if there are any questions or
Anybody
suggestions.
have any questions on that?
I think I like the concept. I particularly like that you're putting trees back in. I would discourage the idea of bird feeders if you want people to sit on benches.
Point taken.
Agreed.
Point taken. Perhaps we could put the bird feeders in a different place.
Yes.
Just put a statue next to it, and they'll go to the statue.
There
That
you
bird
go.
feeder is more decorative than functional, so you don't have to put food.
Well, there you go.
If you close the door of the bird feeder, it could just be entertainment.
You know, Dave, I'll blame the bird feeder on Dave, even though.
They're lovely,
But we, hearing that, and it made immediate sense when you said it. Maybe a nice place for that, because we've got a couple of those bird feeders that we purchased as part of our marketing plan. Maybe the appropriate place for one of them is in a visible location, not next to a bench at the museum. So,
Yeah.
So,
What you got, Randy?
last thing, as council members are aware, I hope you had a chance to read this memorandum. Most recently, with the presidential primary, as you noticed, there were a lot of signs that came up, temporary signs in the right-of-way that came up. And we began to get questions, both in terms of what is the process, what's permitted, and the more we dug into this, the more we found that our ordinance is one, things pertaining to temporary signs are found in the right-of-way, are found in at least 3 ordinances. And I say at least 3 rather than 3, because last month I would have told you it was 2. And then somebody pointed out a one sentence in a completely different section, which has some bearing. And it's one of those things that I myself had read several times in the context of looking at other things that it hadn't clicked. So what we'd like to do is rewrite that 3 sections, do a scrub to make sure there's not a 4th hiding out there, and have it in one concise place so that if citizens, political parties, businesses, community groups, anyone that's interested in signage can find it in an ordinance that the title matches the subject. As you all received some email during that period where people were pointing out to you things in ordinance sections which didn't align. So we'd like to fix that, and with the help of the city attorney's office, community development, we're going to undertake that in the next several months to get that done. I think in and of itself, it's a good goal, even if we don't make a change. Simply consolidate, streamline, and make sure there's no contradictions. The specific issue that I'm looking for, there's 3, as I noted to you in the memorandum, there are 3 items, and they are related to each other, that I'm looking for some guidance on this evening. Guidance on it this evening is not a decision this evening. It's just help us to craft the ordinance, which we would then bring back to you in at least one work session, well before we ever began the actual amendment process. And it pertains to temporary signs in the city right-of-way. So this doesn't have anything to do with private property. It's only that anywhere between 1 foot to 5 feet on the other side of the road in most instances, there's city right-of-way in residential areas, commercial areas, undeveloped areas, City Hall itself. And so the three questions, before I get some feedback, if I could sort of lay out all three of the questions, Mr.
Well,
Mayor.
you can lay out all three of the questions. I think council would probably like to think about them before they give you the feedback.
I would appreciate feedback whenever it's appropriate. The three questions are to confirm that we want to continue to allow temporary signs in the city right-of-way. If the answer is yes, then I have sort of two follow-on questions. One is, do you also want them to be in the city right-of-way in the residential areas? Why is that an issue to bring up if you were to come and get a permit, put up, doesn't matter what kind of sign, temporary sign of any kind, the Acme Construction Company.
Let's use a council election sign. That's kind
If you were to get a permit to put hunt for mayor signs in city rights of way, that gives you essentially an unrestricted right to do that, which means that someone could put them in the right of way right in front of your house.
of, even if you don't.
Even if you personally didn't appreciate that.
Right.
And I'm not sure when these ordinances were drafted a long time ago, there were people who really thought about that. I'm comfortable, of course, with whatever answer you give me, but I just wanted to sort of make a footnote that you can allow these in the non-residential districts and not allow them in the residential districts, or vice versa, if you wished to. The only thing to remember is wherever you prohibit them, they are prohibited. You don't have the luxury of saying, well, we like flea market signs, but we don't like church bazaar signs or any other combination. And then the final question, which is relates to Victory Boulevard. Your ordinance has, excuse me, I'm sorry. Your ordinance has 4 areas where specifically temporary signs are not allowed in the public right-of-way. Our permit and our practice for more than 10 years has been to restrict it on Victory Boulevard as well. With the exception of the intersection of Wythe Creek and Victory Boulevard, there is no prohibition. And in fact, if you go out now between the Taco Bell, Kentucky Fried Chicken, back to the intersection, you'll see a number of temporary signs for such things as baseball and other things. So our practice has been inconsistent. But if you go the other way, in front of the EDA property to the city line, we have, for years, had a restriction for people getting permits that they couldn't put it there. So we're looking for what it is you would like to have included on those 3 points, so that when we draft a first draft ordinance, that we're tracking to what you think is appropriate for this specific kind of sign in rights of way.
All right, and so when we do this, one, thank you, Randy, and I understand, that we've got kind of a hodgepodge on the code books, got that. When we do this, it would start back at Planning Commission, is that correct?
It would depend. 2 of your ordinances, one of your ordinances is in the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
2 are not.
Okay.
So,
But when we move it into one, let's say we're going to strip out all 3, the bits and pieces in the 3, and we're going to put them into one, quote, signed ordinance, I just would prefer that it go through the whole process. Okay. So that's my
good
2
feedback too. We've got at least 2 choices, and one of which is in the zoning ordinance, which would. And if that is the preference, That's a very timely input for us.
We just want to make sure it's right and it's fair. That's,
Absolutely.
okay. But thank you. Any other council members have some input right now that you want to give, or would you rather just think about it a little bit?
Just this, that the suggestions by the city in the various locations, that would be one of the topics that we discuss in the work session.
In the offsite?
So we can have some
I think
comment
so.
and dialogue on that.
Yeah, I think so. We can add that to that. That's a good point.
The Walmart drama is over, so you can take those signs down now.
Just generally on any ordinance change, I would like for us to delete more than we add, just generally.
Yeah.
10-4.
I like deleting,
Yeah,
I
that's
like
good.
deleting signs.
Okay. All right. So if nothing else, like I said, we'll add that to the offsite discussion on the future land use studies. And then we'll, anything else, Randy?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Knoll?
Well, just congratulate our grant writer extraordinaire for getting us another very fine grant to add fire EMT personnel. I think it's a tremendous asset to the city to have someone who's been so successful with the grant writing he has done. A boat and an airboat and now the firemen, so we're doing better all the time. So appreciate that very much.
It is.
Second career in that, I think.
Helicopter?
Helicopter next.
If I mention it to Joe, don't be surprised in a few years if he doesn't find us a helicopter grant.
All right, Councilman Green.
Three things, Mr. Mayor. I noticed you didn't ask for any comment on what Mr. Bowden had to say, but that's never stopped me before. So I'd just like to say that unless there's some subliminal message in that code, I agree with him. I think he satisfies the criteria for the code. I don't know why we ever denied the letter.
Well,
With that being said,
we'll take a look at it. And I agree. Yeah, so just take a look.
the other thing is the food bank for this month will be Tuesday a week, the 22nd of March. The Poquoson Yacht Club and the Poquoson Exchange Club are hosting it. It's at the old municipal building from 10 to 1. And that's not tomorrow, that's Tuesday week, the 22nd. And I'd also like to put a plug in, or else I won't be able to eat supper when I go home, for the Poquoson Education Foundation Gala that's going to be this Saturday night, March the 19th, at the Poquoson Yacht Club, from 6 to 10. It's always a good time. The theme this time is Dr. Seuss. There will be a casino like there was last time. It's semi-formal attire, but if you want to wear a Seuss-related costume, they would be very happy for you to do that. The silent live auctions, there'll be a catered menu, and beer and wine can be bought. And all of the proceeds, 100% of the proceeds, go toward teacher grants and student scholarships. So please come out and support.
It's a great organization and always a great event, so.
Yep.
I want to know if they're serving green eggs and ham, that's all I want to know.
Just for you.
For you.
Well, I'm sure I'll pay for this later, but Pam does have a Cat in the Hat outfit.
Good. I think you look good in it.
Henry?
That's a great lead-in. Taco Cat, cat spelled backwards, is this weekend at St. George's Brewery. That benefits PAWS, Poquoson Animal Welfare Sanctuary. And that's at 11 o'clock, and they have food trucks, fish tacos, kids play area, face painting, 60 craft vendors, raffle prizes, bake sale, and bands, and all the other things they do at a brewery. So hope everybody can come out there and support PAWS as well. And again, great, nice having a nice new hire in the fire department, and all of his grants are great.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bud?
I'm just going to say I second the comments made so far, and I have no other comments.
Very good, thank you.
They've covered a lot of it. I hadn't planned on it, but I can donate some green eggs to your raffle. My hens lay green eggs. They do. They really do. So I actually brought some. I brought them randomly to give to Bud tonight, but I do have hens and they do lay green eggs. So he was, they're just normal on the inside, but the shells are green. So I'll do that. That'll be good for the raffle. Maybe
Hey,
get
I'm
some
glad
money.
we're in Poquoson.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
And when we go back in our, I know we're gonna have a closed session in a bit. Is there any way, since it was a private property issue, that we can discuss Mr. Bowden's property, or do we have to be talking about acquiring it when we go back in there?
It's not on the agenda.
Not on the agenda, so let's
Okay.
let's give it some due
That's
diligence.
fine,
I
that's
think-
fine.
I think his point was,
Because when I looked at it too, I thought, well, it makes perfect sense to me to,
yeah.
so
let's-
we'll discuss that.
I'm sure staff
another
has not come
Okay.
prepared to talk about that, so
Okay.
let's hear them out.
And that's probably not a closed session item.
Well, that was my
Anyway.
question, was whether it wasn't.
Anything else? Okay. Mr. Vice Mayor?
I don't have anything additional, except this is March 14th, which is 314. Last year's 31415. So I just wish all my math and science buddies a
We can
happy
round.
Pi Day.
We can round, 159.
Yeah, that's all.
Happy Pie Day.
Yep.
Very good.
Even got a tie that says it.
I bet you
Well,
do,
not
married
home, not
married to
home,
the mathematics professor.
Gene,
All right,
excuse
yes.
me, I'm sorry, I'm out of order, but I need to say that it's also Einstein's birthday. I was informed of that earlier.
Oh, I did not know that.
I have an Einstein tie.
All right, finally, great comments, council. One thing, and this gentleman has left us, but if you've been around Poquoson for a long time, you know Officer Marlowe. And Officer Marlowe is retiring, and they're having a retirement party for him that I certainly plan to be at. What you don't realize about a very quiet man like Officer Marlowe is how engaged he was in what they do every day as far as leading the training of our Poquoson Police Department. So, this is a big loss, but it's a great thing for Dwayne to get to that retirement age, really a second retirement age, as best I can tell. And we wish him the best of luck, and we'll miss him. So I don't have anything else this evening, but we do have a closed session. And this closed session is pursuant to, Section 2.23711A3 of the Code of Virginia. And this is to discuss the acquisition of real property for a public purpose. And that is property centered around Poquoson Avenue and adjacent to South Lawson Park. So it makes sense that what we would generally be discussing. So if there's nothing else, I'll ask for a motion that we move to closed session.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. We move to closed session. Questions or comments? Seeing none. Judy?
Councilman Green?
Aye.
Councilman Bernal?
Aye.
Councilman Ayer?
Aye.
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman? And Mayor Hunt? Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you very much. We're in closed session.